Welcome to First Responder Financial Freedom Podcast. We talk to first responders all over the nation who are investing and working on businesses outside their first responder jobs. Our goal is to motivate and educate each other and help provide a better financial understanding for a better future. Now here are your hosts, Mike Webb, Tyler Thrush, and Aaron Foster.
All right, First Responder Financial Freedom. It's just me and Tyler today. Mike's on shift, and we haven't been doing this in a while because of obvious reasons. Everybody's busy with summer stuff. So happy to be on with Tyler today. We're just going to chop it up and talk about a couple of things. I haven't talked to Tyler in probably a couple of weeks now, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been at least a few weeks.
Yeah.
First off, though, let's interrupt everybody. We want to congratulate Mr. Aaron Foster and his wife, Amy, on becoming parents. Congrats, man.
Thank you. Very, very excited. Long time coming.
Yeah, I know. And I know you're, it's awesome after everything that we've talked about prior to this, that day has come. I hope you guys enjoy it. And they're only little, it's so funny because my daughter is now 10 and my son is 8. And I'm like, oh man, I saw this post the other day. It said by the time your kid is 12 years old, you'll have spent 75% of your time with them at home. And that really bummed me out. So I was like, dang, dude, my daughter's already 10 going on 11. So, well, cool. Why don't you start?
Yeah. So I was just to touch on that. Like I had a closing today on an investment property, and I bought it with the mindset that I'm going to use this to make money for his future. So like I figure for 18 years, if I'm paying this property, we'll say $500 a month times 12 months is $6,000 times, 20 years. It's going to make a lot of money for him to go to school and then the appreciation. So when I was at the closing, I was actually thinking about the closing because we were talking about like 529s and custodial accounts and Roth IRAs and 457s and like stuff we normally talk about. And the closing agent, he's a friend of mine. His name's Wet. If you ever need a title guy in DC, Wet Hutton Pat is a great title company to use. But we were talking about it, and he said, he invested in 529 like 10 plus years ago for each one of his 3 kids. And last year, I think December of 2022 was when the government came out and said that you can roll $35,000 into a Roth IRA if you don't use the money for the 529, which is for school for the kids. And I was like, well, how? I was like, if you do that, it doesn't start until 2024. But if you do that, like, isn't there a maximum you can roll every year? And I'm not exactly sure what the number is, but he said he thinks it's like only like $6,000 a year. So starting in 2024, you can only roll like $5,000 or $6,000 a year up to $35,000 after the course of 5 or 6 years. Do you know anything about that?
I don't, because when I first looked into 529s, it was just like there wasn't like that big draw to me. And I know that there's so many there's so many rules and things like that. So honestly, what I've done is we started an LLC. I let the kids pick the name of the LLC. And then we have a few rentals that are in that LLC that are owned free and clear already. And that's basically going to be their college fund. And I'm going to, whenever that point comes, it'll take loans out on one or however many I need and let that be, because that money's tax free too, right? I'm not going to have to pay taxes on that money, and the tenants will be paying it down. So to answer your question, no. When I decided to do this stuff, I had heard somebody talk about doing this with rentals. It might have even been Brandon Turner from Bigger Pockets, and that resonated with me. Like, everything is real estate, so I don't know a lot about 529s other than my initial research. And when I was doing that was not a possibility.
Yeah, one of the things I didn't like about it when I was doing research on it, because I knew I was having a kid, was if you don't use the money and you pull the money out, you get taxed on that money that you put in there. So it could be sitting there for 10, 20 years while the kid's growing up. And if he decides that he wants to be, go to the military and use a GI Bill instead of going to college, then now when you pull that money out, then you get screwed because now you're paying taxes on it. But one of the things Wet was telling me today was that he has so much money in there is that if his kids don't use all of it, they can roll it into his grandkids' accounts. So basically, it's kind of like a generational wealth Whereas
That's cool.
if they don't use it, now the grandkids can go to college. And if they don't use it, their grandkids can go to college. And it's still accumulating money. It still has a value to it. And it's gaining interest. So even if it just sits there, maybe the next generation will use it, or the next generation. I thought that was kind of cool. And I really thought about it that way.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing. If the money doesn't go to waste, then it's obvious, it's good, and it doesn't have to be the only thing, but it can definitely be a good thing. Yeah, and for me, like my son, for example, I'm assuming. I mean, if he wants to go to college, awesome. Just knowing what he's naturally inclined to do, I feel like he'll go into the trades. So I feel like, well, this could be startup capital if for a business, for a contracting business, if he wants to be like, do some type of internship or apprenticeship, like a lineman, electrician, anything, and then just have those funds available there. Yeah, it's interesting because I know that the 529 is like the main plan, and I I hope my idea works out. We'll see. Unless the house is burned down or they lose a lot of value. But as of now they're working out perfect, and I got 7 more years for my daughter. So I think by that time it'll be kind of cool to see where we're at.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about a couple other things, like finance wise, especially the kids, because I'm looking into that now. Is as we can see, looks like a bomb went off behind me. I had to move my office upstairs to the basement, and my old office is now the nursery. So I'm still getting this thing in order. But I think it was this year you can write off 300 square feet of office space. Let's see what it is. 2023 office space write-offs. So if you have a dedicated workspace and it's $5 per square foot up to 300 square feet, as long as you have dedicated square footage for an office, that's another tax deduction for you. And that's one of the reasons, like, I didn't want to get rid of my office. I just had to change it to a different part of the house because I wanted that tax deduction. And if you ever get audited, they can come and take a look and be like, measure it out. Like, it's only a 10 by 10. Sorry for your luck. It's only 100 square feet. So should have luck. So that's one of the things I've been looking at is the different tax deductions. And I think 2023, they had kid deductions too.
Well, when you were talking too, I put it on mute. I was looking something up too because you made me think. So I know a lot of people when I was in Investor Fuel, they also would pay their kids, and kids that are under the age of 18, you can pay them. I want to say, yeah, $5,150 without either of you incurring a tax liability. So that's like another thing that you can do too, right? You can pay your child for if they're in marketing or whatever, have an ad with them. I'm sure there's ways that people figure it out, but I know a lot of those people are paying their kids up to that limit, and then you don't have to pay any type of gift tax or anything like that, and then your child doesn't have to pay any income tax on that as well. So you do that for 5,000 years, and there's no stipulations how any of that money is spent. You're golden too. So.
And then the COVID child tax credit, that's all expired. So going 2023, it looks like the qualifying dependent only gets $2,000 per kid. So if you have 5 kids, it's $10,000. I got a couple buddies of mine in mind that think about that. They got a whole bunch of starting line.
That's a lot of kids.
Yeah, they got a whole basketball team and starting line of a football team. Yeah. So 457 is another thing that came up. We were talking about. Let's just talk about a couple of different things. So 457 was one of them. And when I had this conversation with a couple of guys at work, they're like, yeah, we put into it, but we don't know what it is. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, we're just told to put like 5% into it. So that's what we do. So now when our recruits are signed up for the academy, when they do their paperwork, they're automatically enrolled and 5% of their pay goes into the 457, which is great because whether you know it or not, by the time you figure out what it is, you're like, oh, I've got a bunch of money in here. So there's pre-tax and post-tax for 457s. So you can put the money in pre-tax, and then you can pull it out when you retire without having to pay the penalty. Or you can put the money in after taxes. So you pay the taxes on the money, you put it in after the taxes, and then you can borrow up to 50% of what your contributions are. So 2 things to know. Contributions and growth are 2 separate line items. So you cannot borrow against your growth. You can only borrow against your contributions. And those are very, very definitive terms, because if you try to borrow against the growth, then you have more tax liabilities again, which is the whole point of deferring the money that you have in there. I've actually stepped mine back just because the growth wasn't there the last couple of years. There was a decline, and there's two mindsets, in my opinion. One is you're buying discounted stock because the 457 are backed by stock, or you're buying into a stock that's losing the value. So it just depends on what your mindset is. And I'm not sure either one's right, but for me, I didn't want to buy into a stock that was losing value. Or the other mindset is I'm not buying into a stock at a discounted rate with the hope and the expectation that will bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, 457s, they're so interesting. Like we have ours, we have a lot of like target date funds and stuff like that in ours, which makes sense for those of us who are not super sophisticated in stocks. But it was funny the other day. I was like going through, I don't know what you would call it, like a financial health check or whatever. Like, oh, how much index universal life do I have? I haven't logged into my 457 and I don't know how long. And I was like, oh, it's almost got back to the point it was, 2 years ago, right before it got dropped. And bless you. And the interesting part for me, the only thing that was losing money, I had like 5 different choices. The only one that was losing money was the inflation protected fund. And that was negative 11%. So literally the fund I chose for this type of period is losing. It was negative 11%. So that kind of blew my mind. And for me, what's become hard is the 457 is good. And I maxed it out for a long time every single year. But then once I got my solo 401k for the business, and then that's self-directed, I'm like, man, first off, you can put way more money in every year. Secondly, I can control how I invest. And to your point with the stocks and not getting discounted stocks, I just don't know enough about it, and it does not interest me enough to do it. Whereas I have spent most of my adult life in the real estate industry, and I know how to get returns that equal what I would be getting, if not exceed them. So I've kind of stepped away from my 457 as well. I think I put the minimum amount in. And as far as whatever it takes to have my employer match, because that's free money, right? I mean, that's a no-brainer in my opinion. Even if I don't like any of the investments, it's like, well, if I can take that free money every single month, I should do it. And that helps your ROI. But outside of that, I use my 401k to invest in one of Ian's deals, to do some private money lending. And that, to me, A, I enjoy that more. And then B, I can forecast my returns, right? We're hoping, let's say if we invest in Coca-Cola, that Coca-Cola does well, and that's it. We don't have any say or any kind of control. For the other stuff, it's like, okay, I know what kind of return I can get, and I can forecast this stuff. So you guys have the IRA. We don't have that option. You guys do, right?
Yeah, we do. We just got it like 2 years ago, but it was never broadcast to the fire department. So guys was like, we don't have that. And I looked it up. I was like, yeah, we do. We do have that option. And it's kind of a surprise that it was never told to us. But that's a whole nother can of worms to open up. I'm looking at mine right now. Ours is Vanguard. And I'm looking at it, and it says since my inception, since 2015, I've had a 44.25% return. My average annual performance is 4.79%. And the quarter to date performance just this quarter from April to June was 5.13. So it looks like it's made a really good bounce back after COVID. I just worry that it's one of those things that's like highs and lows. That we talk about, like if somebody says something or does something, it's going to affect those stocks. So like Bud Light, Anheuser-Busch is the prime example right now. That and Target, where they push this trans person on their can, and the fallout they had because of it was like in the billions of dollars, I think it was. So like if somebody in the company does something, it doesn't matter if it's Coca-Cola or Bud Light or Anheuser-Busch or whatever it might be. If Elon Musk says, oh, this stock is terrible, this is not something I would invest in, then it drops and it tanks. And it's like you're not basing the value of the stock upon the company, you're basing it upon somebody's opinion of the stock or something they did. And that's one thing that makes me nervous is every stock is vulnerable to somebody's opinion. And if they have a big enough platform to talk about it, then it can have a detrimental effect on the value of that stock. And I don't like that.
Yeah. I mean, the emotional responses right now in the US, and I'm sure the rest of the world, are huge. And then that just shows how you build so much brand equity over a lifetime in a company, and then it gets wiped away. And if you're a stockholder, it gets brutalized. And yeah, that guys, more and more, like when my retirement date comes, I always think, I'm like, man, I can't wait to get access to this 457 money, because I'm going to put it in my solo 401k, and it's nothing like crazy, but it's a good enough chunk to where it has me excited. Like, man, I get 12 to 14% returns on this. Like, I'm going to be super happy.
That's pretty good.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is, and it's funny too. So I do have. I have a private loan out that's 12 and 2. And I think if I can just replicate that, that would be so awesome. And just it's how do you scale that, and how do you make it repeatable so your money's always in motion. I mean, the one positive where you're 457, you would have to say that your money's in the market every single day. Whereas with this kind of stuff, you have to be diligent about always having a loan or always having a deal where that money's invested. Ian's deal, I think, is done pretty well. Did you do the same one as Mike and I, or did you do one afterwards?
I don't remember. I think I did. I think you did the first one. I did the second one. I did the group of storage unit facilities down south. I think you guys did one of the first ones, but he's bought so many deals since then. I'm not even sure where he's at now.
Yeah, it would be interesting to have him back on. I want to have a beard contest with him. Mine's getting pretty long.
I had to trim mine, man. I'm on baby leave right now. I can only go so long. But look, one of the things I wanted to bring up was, Chris Bockley. We had him on the show a couple months ago now. He's a financial advisor. He's part of the group if anybody's listening and wants to reach out to somebody. And he put an article out, and he put a comment on the Facebook group out, but he also put an article out that he does. He says 5% cash on it's 5% return on cash, a good deal. And my initial response to him in the group was, well, it only depends. If that's all you're looking at is the 5% return, that's not good to me, in my opinion. But if it's 5% return and I have tax write-offs, then it might be worth a little bit more value to me. But he broke it down. I'm looking at his newsletter right now. He's going to do it quarterly if you want to sign up for it. He basically broke it down and said, is 5% nominal return good? Because if inflation's at 6.5%, then you're actually getting a negative 1.5 realistic return on that money. So you need to look at the bigger picture. When we talk about returns and investments and stuff like that, like I know with me and your deal is that me and your money and Ian's deal, we have a guaranteed rate of return. I think I'm getting 8%. I'm sure you're going to get 8 or 10%. So I know exactly what I'm going to get every year. The only thing I didn't calculate is that's a new, I think, Schedule E on my taxes, and that's an additional $1,000 a year or whatever, the $500 a year for my tax person to do that. So it's like I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul. So we'll say 2,000, and I'm spending 1,000 to get those taxes done on it. So is that worth it to me? And I don't know. I mean, it opened up doors for me, and Ian been friends for well over a decade, so that door has been open. But now, like, we can have these conversations, and I can get more knowledge out of this deal. No, what do you think?
Well, I mean, you're making money and you're learning, right? So I think it's worth it, and it's kind of like it ties in to a little bit about what I wanted to talk about for. This will kind of tie in. So last weekend I went to Vegas. I went to a mastermind and an event, right? And the cost was, I forget, it was a few $1,000, and then the mastermind itself was $15,000 a year. And and perfect, thank you. So this is what I wanted to talk about for this. So is it a cost or is it an investment? And both of Ian's definitely is an investment, right? And like you said, it opens doors. You kind of rip the Band-Aid off and get your first syndication done, and it's not too big of a capital requirement, and you're making money and you're learning a new skill. So the same thing for that 15 grand, like people were like, oh my gosh, it's $15,000. And I'm like, well, wait a minute though. You're looking at it as a truly sunken cost, right? Like here's 15 grand, take my money, I'm never getting it back. If that's your feeling on whatever you're being, asked to join, then that's probably not the right group for you. Not to say that that there is not one, but you have to be like $15,000. This is a bargain. I know I'm going to make 10x that, 15x that, 20x that. And I've done masterminds that are pretty expensive before, but for me, it was interesting because you had 1,000 people in the room, right? And not everybody's done something like that. So it's always interesting to see people's reaction when they drop that number. And most of them were the same response that you had. It was like, damn, 15 grand, that's a lot of money. I mean, it's enough to where it makes your butt pucker a little bit. But I think they're worth it. And the one thing I did like, it's funny. So I liked the fact that they didn't let you finance it monthly.
Either had it, you didn't.
Exactly. I think for two things, right? So it shows that you're financially in a position to be able to drop 15K right away, which, okay, you're not going to put somebody who, ooh, I think I can make $1,000 a month work. And then it stretches them super thin. So to answer your question, I would say, yeah, I think it's worth it because same thing, right? I think I get paid $500 quarterly for my investment with Ian. Is that anything that's going to like rock my world? No, but it's cool because I get to see his quarterly updates. I get to see the whole process kind of like not intimately, but close enough to where I'm basically getting paid to learn a portion of syndication.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it.
You get a seat at the table, whereas that table wasn't open to you before.
Right. Yeah. And
so,
like you said,
so the 15,000, I mean, everything I equate, and I do, this is not necessarily a good habit, but it's not a bad habit either, is that I look at what I started out in the fire department. This is 20 years ago. We started off making like $35,000 a year. So when people are like, oh, just drop the price of the house $20,000, I'm like, oh, you don't know like the blood and the guts and the stabbings and the shootings and the fires and the burns and blah, blah, blah that we got for $20,000. That's 8 months of work, or that's the whole year after taxes. So like, I see things for what they were, not what they are sometimes. And it's a curse and a blessing, we'll say. So the $15,000, it also weeds out the people who aren't serious. Like I get that. I understand that. My thing is that I think with my experiences, I've been hosed in the past where I paid money for like an event or a syndicate or not an event or a access like this, like a mastermind. And it was a waste of time. Like it was a waste of thousands and thousands of dollars. And I'm like, I want to know what am I buying into and what's my return going to be? Like it's a calculated risk at that point, because as well as I do, there's a lot of people out there like, oh, buy this deal for $5,000 and we'll teach you everything you need to know. Oh, but wait, there's more. Spend another $2,000 and we'll teach you how to do wholesaling. Spend another $5,000 more. I'll teach you how to do syndications. And it's like, you keep upselling it. It's like, I got to know what I'm getting into. So if it's going to be $15,000 and I'm part of a mastermind where I have other guys teaching me and it's like the rising tides rises all ships, then yeah, I'm invested, bro. But if it's like buy more, do this, add more, then I'm not about it.
So to your point, a lot, and this is a little pro tip, a lot of these bigger masterminds will let you come one time for free to check it out, right? So if people are worried about it, and I would now having done stuff like this, if they're going to offer it, I would totally go for free. And what I like more than the actual presentations is in between presentations, at dinner, in the morning, going out at night, hanging out, doing all that stuff, getting like the vibe check. Are these people that I want to hang out with on a quarterly basis? That's the biggest thing for me. No, you don't want to go pay 15 grand or 10 grand, or some of these masterminds like CG's like 25 to 50 now, I think. It's like, you don't want to go do, even if the information is great and you don't really care for the people, know that they're bad, you're not on the same wavelength. It's like, well, I'm not going to go spend all this money and hang out with people I don't want to hang out with. But I know a lot of them, I don't want to put investor fuel on the spot, but at one point we'll say that I know they did let you come to your first meeting and check it out for free. Now I would say if you have no intentions of joining it, I don't know if I would take advantage of people. That's just me, but I definitely think it's worth, if they're offering it, to do it. And I think it's very dependent on what you can get. And for me, a lot of it, I know Ed Mylett always says proximity is power. It's like, who am I joining this with? What kind of connections do they make? And this one was kind of cool because they had there's people there that I like. Ed Mylett spoke. Brad Lee was there. Do you know who Brad Lee is?
I don't think I do.
So he has got a big podcast. He's in the same vein as like Ed Mylett and Andy Frisella. And then there were some other people that I didn't totally know, but that were awesome. Like Jesse Itzler was there. He's an author. He's written the book
A Team of One. Is that Bradley?
Yeah, Brad Lee had created Lightspeed VT, which is all virtual training. So for those of the Grant Cardone people and all those people, all the training that they provide are on Brad Lee's system. But
Okay.
they all had different perspectives, and that cost for sure was worth it. And I think the mastermind cost is worth it too. But if you can get in the same room as these people, it just changes the way you think. But to your point, there is a ton of hucksters out there, and you really have to vet. But I'm going to challenge you personally, because you said this multiple times, and we're going to go back, and this is for everybody, but I'm going to use your example specifically, and I'm going to change the scenario. So what you said is you had an experience where you did contribute a lot of money,
More than
and
one, a
then
couple experiences, but yeah.
okay, so we'll say a couple, and then you lost money. So now I'm going to flip it on you, because we are always touting rental real estate. The number one complaint I have is people say, oh, I invested in one real estate deal, a rental, it didn't go well and I lost money. So if that was you, have you lost money on a deal? And if you have, did you quit investing?
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I like that mindset. I think I'm not going to make excuses for myself, but firefighters and police and first responders, they're always like, can I trust this person? Are they worth it for me to
100%.
put this energy in? Like, our first response isn't like, oh, new best friend. It's more like, who's this guy? What's he made of?
Yes.
And I think it can be a hindrance. I mean, it's the same thing as before. It could be a blessing or a curse. So in this regard, like, there's always somebody who wants your money and they want to upsell you. So is it worth it? Like you said, can you get in the door the first time and be like, okay, these guys are legit. They're not going to try to steal my money and waste my time. Blah 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 blah. Like you see as well as I do, like all these people who are like, oh, mastermind, buy my course, blah blah blah. I'm on TikTok and Instagram. I'm like, yeah, but you're not even old enough to have gone through the 2008 recession. You didn't go through
Correct.
the 1999 data or technological recession back in 99. Like, what have you actually experienced in the last 30 years that you can say that you are a professional and you know these things? So like, I always look at people and I'm not trying to pick them apart, but it's like, what are you actually made of? What's your real experience like? What's your market in? Like, DC is I was just talking to my closing agent about this. Is DC is very, very insulated. We have to have people here for the government. We have to have people here from all over the country. We have to have people here for federal and private companies. Like, it's very insulated. So when there's a market downturn, it doesn't affect this area as much as it does somewhere else, anywhere in the country for the most part. So like, if all your financial experiences here where you've never really been hit that hard, it's a little bit harder for me to trust your judgment on investments. And I'm very conservative. Tommy always gives me a hard time. He's like, you're the most conservative investor I know. He's like, you're going to tell me the worst and the best things about this is you're going to analyze the hell out of the deal. And sometimes I do analyze too much, but I mean, whatever. I mean,
Tommy, yeah, that's fine. And so that's one more thing I do want to add is you asked me, I'm not going to say the mastermind, but you asked me, oh, hey, do you think it's worth me to join it? And I said, not unless you want to do X. And I think that's the biggest thing, because here's the deal. For me, I thought, for example, oh, I want to flip 50 to 100 houses a year because of why I got in a room. That's what everybody was talking about. It's so exciting. You're like, oh, yeah, I want to do this. Well, I started to ramp up. And I'm like, I hate this. I do not want to flip 50 to 100 houses a year. That is not what I want to do. So I think before you join a mastermind is, what are my goals? What do I want to get out of this? And then if they're in alignment, then do it. But if not, there's no sweat. And I don't think it's that big of a deal. I love masterminds, knowing that the ones I have been a part of so far have really shortcutted my learning. And I'm not that I'm lazy. At this point, I have enough faith in my ability to vet people, like you said, because of our day job. I think we get very good at vetting people and reading people. And if I feel like it's worth it, I'm going to bet on myself. So I'm going to say, hey, this is the group I need to be in. And then it's not a lifelong commitment. It's usually 3, 6, 9, 12 months, and then do it and then go from there. So
you said something. I want to touch on that real quick, because we had a private conversation a while back, and I did ask you, I was like, do you think this is worth it? Because I'm comfortable with 1 to 5 houses a year. Like, I don't need to jump to 50 to 100 houses. I don't think that's ever going to be my bandwidth and my capacity. So like, if I do 1 to 5 houses a year, there's certain groups that aren't meant for me because I just don't fit that mold. And I think I'm glad you brought that up, because I completely forgot about that conversation. if you want to do 50 to 100, then yeah, you have to ramp up your stuff. If you're looking at 1 to 5, it's a completely different animal. You don't need to have a 15, 20, $50,000 mastermind to make that happen.
No.
But one of the things I do want to say, which I just saw this earlier, on Tommy's post, his nice long post that he posted about like motivation, you said comparison is the thief of joy. And I was like, I really like that, because if I compare myself to somebody who's doing 500 to 1,000 deals, or 50 to 100 deals a year, and I'm like, oh, I can't, I got to be able to be this guy, and I got to be able to have this much money, and I got to have the pool, and I got to have this and that and the other. And it's like, I'm not enjoying what I have right now. Like, I've got my little, I don't know, what do I have now? I think 11 or 12 properties, and I'm very comfortable with those. And I know what my projections are and what my overhead is going to be. And like, my bandwidth and my capacity isn't stretched thin. Like, now that I have a son, I'm trying to get all the things off my plate for the next couple of months, because I know what's important to me is going to be the family and spending time with him. Because you guys are always like, you guys and friends of mine are always like, spend time with your kid. They're going to grow up fast. You're never going to experience this again. Be home. And I'm like, I'm taking that not with a grain of salt. I'm taking that to heart, where I'm like, okay, I need to actually get stuff off my plate. Like today, I've got to go figure out why I've got a leak in a brand new renovation, because I can't get anybody over there. Like, I'm going to be gone for probably an hour and a half to 2 hours. And I'm like, fuck. Sorry, darn. I need to be home for that time, but I can't find anybody to fix it. And I've got renters in there. So, I mean, am I going to go over there? Yes. Is 2 hours a drop in the bucket in the scheme of things? Yes. But like, it's still important to me. To those 2 hours are still 2 hours of mine.
It's huge, man. And I mean, I was talking to Todd Swaggerty yesterday, and I said, it's like a perfect example, right? I've been coaching my daughter a ton the last year and a half for softball.
Yeah.
It's taken up like 7 days a week. And I said, opportunity costs, I shudder to think about how much income that I've lost because I've done that, but it's never once entered my mind as like, oh my gosh, I'm losing. It's like, dude, I will never get this time back with her. And I don't care if it was $1 million. I'm 100% good with it, because I ain't going to be looking back and like, oh, remember that one year I made an extra 250 or 100 or whatever it was. It was like, my whole office over here right now is, I have these pictures with my daughter, softballs with my daughter, trophies with my daughter. And it's like, dude, I will never forget that. Ever. Yeah. And that's the thing. So had I wanted to flip 50 to 100 houses, and I was in the middle of that when all this opportunity came up, I would have never done it, and I would miss out on all of it. And I don't, like I said, and I know Mike and I have told you a lot, and I know you're experiencing now. It's like, man, this will go by so fast. My wife and I were talking this week about Vegas, right? We took the kids to Vegas, and they were super young, and we're like, this is crazy. Why are we even doing this? Probably not a good spot for them, but we just made it kid friendly, and they had a blast. But we're like, we talk about it like it happened last year. I got a notification when I was in Vegas, not knowing that was the exact same day that I had been there, but it was 4 years ago. So we're talking about a trip that we took 4 years ago, and it went by like that, because we were talking about it like we did it last year. And if you had asked me, I would have said a year, maybe 2 ago, not 4. And my kids were at that point 6 and 4, and now they're 8 and 10, and it just blew by. So I think it's good to know what your priorities are, and then build your business, your side hustle, whatever around that. And I think the older I get, the more I believe that. I think when I was younger, even a couple of years ago, honestly, before, I think me getting hurt honestly slowed me down a lot and made me refocus my priorities. I'm not gonna lie, it as much as it sucks walking around like a pirate right now, it's definitely put a lot of things into perspective, and I think a lot of the things that have come out of it are good. So, but also it helps me out that I have those rentals like you do that are paying me passive income every single month. It makes the stress a little bit less.
So I'm going to just turn the conversation a little bit back to investing, just because I don't want to get down the emotional rabbit hole on the podcast. So one of the conversations I was having earlier, we're talking about the ripple effect for real estate, for investing, for anything. Like, anything can be a ripple effect. And my closing agent, we always have good conversations. Love the guy to death. He's from Alabama. Went to Alabama, and he was telling me how when their coach before Saban in Alabama, before he was there was a downturn in the market because the coaching was bad, and the the team was bad. And what happened was the downtown area around Alabama, around the campus and the football stadium, took a massive hit because people just weren't coming anymore. But as soon as Saban came in, the ripple effect of the team doing very well, all the economy started booming again, and how like a college football coach can affect the economy just by losing games or winning games. And I thought that was very interesting. And I was telling him a story about a buddy of mine. He's a wildfire dude. And we were talking about Gatlinburg, how it burned up a couple of years ago. Gatlinburg's in Tennessee. And he was like, hey, man, it's opportunity now. Go down there and buy up. It's a beautiful side. I'm like, man, it looks like inside of a busted oven. Like, it looks terrible. He's like, it'll grow back quick. He goes, in 10 years, that'll be a thriving community for vacation spots again. And you could have bought a place down there, a livable place for, under $100,000. And I'm looking now, I'm like, those same houses are going for $400,000 or $500,000. And it's because of the ripple effect, because it grew back, it burned up. You could have got a deal. It burned up. You could have got a deal back then. And then now the economy is coming back tenfold. There's opportunity. So never miss the opportunity of the ripple effects. If a coach that your favorite, Big Ten team, they start failing and all the economy dies around it, it's an opportunity for you to go in there and buy stuff up. If literally a town burns up and Gatlinburg, then you can go in and buy stuff up. If there's an earthquake or a tsunami or a hurricane or a tornado or something like that, it's opportunity to go in there when nobody else will, to go after these opportunities to buy and invest long term. Have you seen other like ripple effects in markets other than real estate and stocks? Like, can you think of anything else?
As far as that goes, no. I mean, most of my stuff that I would equate to big real estate, like there's a town up in Northern California, Santa Rosa, that unfortunately we sent our engine out on a strike team and that whole town burned down to the ground. And I was like, man, whoever has the intestinal fortitude to tackle this right now is going to, reap the benefits later on down the road. And that sounds kind of crass and like unsensitive, but I'm thinking, well, you need capital to rebuild this area. But most of it is where I see is that kind of stuff. It's like, what do I see that's happening? What is going to change? But yeah, as outside of real estate, I can't really think of a concrete example.
One thing for ripple effect I can think is like your anything that you put money into that somebody else can, their actions can affect your money. Like, that's the ripple effect. But yeah. I mean, I don't know, stocks, bonds, government comments, whatever it might be. Those are all like items that can be affected by somebody screwing up. Like, even with like Hunter Biden, I'm not going to say Hunter Biden, even with somebody finding cocaine in the White House, like, did it have an effect, like a ripple effect throughout Congress and Senate and people and their faith in the government's ability to perform? Like, yes, absolutely. Like, people don't believe Secret Service or the White House or Biden because of tasks like this. Like, there's a ripple effect, actions and consequences. There's always going to be something where you're going to have a consequence from your actions. And a lot of people don't think about that. Whereas the ones that do, they're like, okay, if this happens, this is a good time for me to invest. This is a good time for me to run in when everybody else is running out. Who said that? That was a famous rich guy.
Yeah, I said when everybody's running out of a burning building, run in, or it's when there's blood on the streets, invest.
Yeah. Either way, like, I think a lot of guys you gotta look for the opportunity, and the opportunity is when everybody else is scared to be there.
So you reminded me of one, and honestly, this is not a good one in my opinion. And actually, I was when 9/11 happened, I was a legal assistant for a law firm in Los Angeles because that's what I thought I was going to do, is become an attorney. And it was interesting because people were thinking this way already. But the morning of 9/11, I remember I was in college, got up, my roommate told me what happened. I ended up going to work anyways because at 21, I didn't really realize what was going on to the totality of it. But all the attorneys in the office, like the partners, I'm definitely not going to use names because I don't want to get sued, but they were investing in stocks that day like nobody's business.
Opportunity.
I know, but for me, especially now with our jobs, it definitely rubbed me the wrong way then. I was like, dude, this is kind of a weird thing, but man, they were pumping. It was so the ripple effect, that's a very bad example in my opinion, but
not the perfect example.
Dude, it did. I'll never forget the feeling I had.
Morally, it's a little raw.
Dude, I can condone that.
Morally, it's very raw because it's
forget.
not like taking opportunity. Yeah, I get it, man.
Dude, I can picture myself in the cubicle. I can watch him running out, the main partner running in and out of the office, talking to his secretary, telling her to either short stocks, buy stocks. I'm like, what the hell? We just got freaking attacked, and these people, but I'm sure they did very well on it.
Oh, I'm sure. But like, that's one of those things. Like, where's your moral compass? Like,
I could never do that, dude.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think there's bigger things to worry about, but like, there's opportunities out there. It's just like China right now in Afghanistan. Like, they came in because of all the lithium in the mountains, and we didn't capitalize on the opportunity when we were there. But now that we're out of there, China came in and said, "Hey, look, we'll partner with you. We just want to mine this lithium, and they can control the majority of the lithium in the world, and they're opportunists no matter what the situation is. Even with Russia right now, they're the opportunists."
Yeah. It's.
I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. That's a whole I had to change into my tinfoil hat.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Well, what I kind of do want to talk about, we're coming up on 40 minutes, and you brought up the group. So not to toot our horn with the group, but what I've realized or been watching recently too, and I don't post as much as I used to, just because, like I said, I've been so involved with my daughter, and I'm sure now that we have a break, I will. But the conversations are changing. So we have guys who have been in the group since the very start, and they're becoming people who are posting, like you said, Tommy's post the other day. I'm like, that's pretty legit. We go back to his first post to now, phenomenal. We have guys, I posted it on my Instagram story the other day, but he made 80 grand, and I did not ask him, but I wanted to say, in a Midwest fire department, I would bet my life it's close to a year's salary. And he went most fire departments, 80 grand is a year's salary. Let's not kid ourselves.
Top step firefighter in DC right now is $96,000.
See, so there you go. So I was thinking, man, this guy used a free group, asked questions. Most of the people posting success stories are like wallflowers, right? They may not even be posting, but they're soaking all of it up. And then they post that kind of post, and I'm like, hell yeah. So this is not like, well, it is a plug for the group, and at the moment we don't get compensated for any of this. I just wanted people to know, like, if you have not been in the group, join the group, look what's going on, and look at people like Tommy and other guys in there that have started since like day one in the group, and how much they've grown, and now they're giving back to the same community that elevated them. And I just think it's kind of cool. Like I said, recently, just seeing the posts, seeing those, what I like to is nobody, oh, this guy's bragging. It's like, dude, that provides hope. If you don't get fired up because somebody in your same profession took a leap of faith and made 80 grand, and you don't want to tell them awesome job, that's on you. That's wrong with you. Something wrong with you. And I think it's just cool to see the conversations changing. People are getting involved. And then even somebody that we interviewed that I think we should have back on, he's selling his business now. And I'd be interested to see, they must have got a good enough offer to sell the business, see how that went. And I've been noticing the group's been changing for the better, as far as you're getting people who have been doing this long enough now. And I don't even know how long we've had the group. It's got to be close to 2 years, but the conversations are changing. They're improving, and people that have been taking action are now either showing their success or they're giving back. And I think, in the fire department, I equate it to the senior guy teaching the boot firemen how to do their job. And they don't, the senior guy's not asking for anything in return. It's, hey, I was taught by somebody before me. It is now my duty to teach somebody who's coming on after me, so that when I leave this place, the fire department, for example, is better than it was when I left it. And I see that same type of thing happening in the group. And I just, like I said, I'm a wallflower the last couple of months recently too, but I just think it's super cool to see how the conversations are changing.
Yeah, I'm looking at the top group contributors. There's like 48 people on there, and it's like
Ted.
A lot, huh?
Ted is one of them too. I forgot.
Ted Caputo, yeah, he's retired detective out of New York. He bought his first short-term rental, then he brought a laser. I'm not gonna say I had anything to do with it, but we've talked about lasers and real estate quite a bit, and we keep in touch. Like, I've made some pretty decent friends in here. Like my buddy Connor McDonough, he's a PG firefighter. He just bought land in a house, and he's gonna subdivide the house off and sell it and keep the land for hunting. And obviously, the Ian Hurwitz we've had on here, we talk about him a lot. Derek Goss, we talk to him fairly often. He's up in the Pennsylvania, Maryland border area. One of these guys just bought his very first property A bunch of these guys are starting businesses now and asking about it. I know Seth Teagle, we had him on here. Seth is expanding his apartment complex purchases. Daniel Brown expanding his land purchase stuff. We're obviously not the ones who are responsible for their success, but I think that we've been good cheerleaders and good support systems for that. And that's one of the things I like about the group is that, to your point, a lot of guys are supporting each other. It's like, okay, if you have a question, man, ask it. And firefighters and cops are shy when it comes to asking for help. We always want to know the answer, and we always want to be right. So a lot of guys won't put themselves out there. So a lot of these conversations are being had in private, either between us or between each other. Yeah. Then I think a lot of these guys are making connections and networking and relationships that are going to last and pay out for a long time. They say your network is your net wealth. So if you have other people that want to grow, then this is the kind of group and the kind of guys you want to be around.
100%. And I think, like I said, I just think it's cool. And I know, like you mentioned, Ian's doing big things. And I also applaud, I forget who it was, and I probably wouldn't say their name anyways, but somebody bought a deal, is having a tough time exiting it, but they're not sitting there hiding, pretending everything's like all hunky-dory. They're saying, hey, this is my struggle. This is what I'm going through. And people are, commenting back, letting them know. But I think it's good to share your failures too, is my point. And I think that shows that there's a lot of honesty in the group if you're willing to post your failures, not just your successes. So I would highly encourage people to do it. We also need guests too. We have one guest lined up in the near future. I've reached out to a bunch of firefighter-owned businesses via Instagram, and I'm still waiting for people to sign up. But if you guys use a product, or if you do something that's with a firefighter-owned business and you just police. Like the way that, first responder in general. I'm saying firefighter because I'm a firefighter. I don't care any type of first responder-owned business
or second responder.
Yeah, send it over. I mean, I think it's huge. And I know we got a lot of good feedback from like SEO with it. Was it Keith Sant? Like, people like that one too. If there's people that are outside the first responder community, but we think would provide value with nothing to sell, then let us know that too, because we're trying to keep the podcast going. We want to ramp it up. And I know Mike, Aaron, and myself all enjoyed doing it. We just need people to step up. And I get a lot of people say, I'm not there yet. And that's not the correct answer. If you're not there yet, let's hop on the podcast, because if you talk about what you're struggling with and what you're not comfortable with, guess what? Everybody else probably has those same things. And we can work through it. I mean, especially I would say for real estate, between me, Aaron, and Mike, if you're struggling with something on the real estate side, we most likely have been through it or know somebody who has, and we can help you out. So we're looking to ramp this back up. It's summertime. Aaron has a new baby. Mike, I know, is working a lot, and I have kids too, but we really want to keep it going, ramp it back up, and provide value. So if you guys have guests, please send them my way. You can send them to booking@firstresponderfinancialfreedom.com, please. And then join the group.
Even if you just want to hop on and talk about stuff too, right? Like like if you're like, hey, I need help with this, like, let's have that conversation. If nothing 100%. Else, put minds together and kind of get ideas. It's like getting advice on TikTok and YouTube. Like, it might not always be right, but it gets your creative juices flowing.
100%. 100%. All right. Well, do you got anything else before we shut her down?
No, I'm gonna go hang out with my baby and then go fix something that's broken.
Nice, dude. Well, it was good catching up. Congratulations again. And then, guys, if you need anything, reach out to us in the group. And then if not, we will see you on the next episode.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thanks again for spending some time with us today. If you found value in anything you heard, please share with someone who may benefit. We look forward to connecting between shows in our Facebook group, First Responder Financial Freedom. Till next time.